Vive le Christ roi!
The Holy Prelate, prophecy, resistance, and the battle for the Kingship of Christ. Crisis, prophecy, and hope. Dear trumpeters, welcome to this presentation on the prophecies of Our Lady of Good Success, venerated in Quito, Ecuador, and their profound implications for the modern crisis within the Catholic Church. These revelations, entrusted to Venerable Mother Mariana de Jesus Torres in the late 16th and 17th centuries, foretold of a time when the corruption of customs would be rampant, the faith would grow dim, and the Church would face an unprecedented crisis of apostasy. From the Syllabus of Errors by Pope Pius IX to Pascendi Dominici Gregis by Pope St. Pius X, the Church's magisterium has relentlessly condemned liberalism, modernism, and their destructive influence. Our Lady of Good Success foresaw precisely these movements, prophesying that Judeo-Masonic sects would infiltrate both civil society and the Church's very structures, leading to the crisis of faith we now witness. Yet amid these dire warnings, a promise of hope was given. A holy prelate would emerge to resist apostasy, oppose impiety, and preserve the priesthood in its traditional, unblemished integrity. Part 1. Historical cornerstones of the prophecy.
Debes contemplar que el cuerpo y el alma su unión buscarán.
The prophecies of Our Lady of Good Success identified critical developments that have come to pass. Our Lady foretold that by the late 19th and into the 20th century, a gradual deterioration in morals would occur. Doctrinal clarity would be obscured, and new forms of worship, Judaic Protestant service, would replace the immemorial traditions of the Church. This apostasy would nearly extinguish the true faith and corrupt Catholic customs. Proclamation of key Marian dogmas. Long before these dogmas were defined, Our Lady of Good Success spoke of the dogmas of the Immaculate Conception in the year of 1854, papal infallibility in 1870, demonstrating the supernatural nature of her revelations. The apparitions foretold the assassination of a Catholic leader who would steadfastly defend Christ's authority in the political realm. This prophecy was fulfilled in Gabriel Garcia Moreno, the President of Ecuador, who was martyred in 1875 by Judeo-Masonic agents. His consecration of Ecuador to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 1873 epitomized the social kingship of Christ as later championed by Pope Pius XI in Quas Primus. Part 2. Vatican II and the Modern Crisis. Moving into the 20th century, the Second Vatican Council was not just a series of debates, it was the French Revolution within the Church. Vatican II was not a continuation of the Church's perennial teachings. It was the complete departure into modernism, liberalism, and heresy, fulfilling yet another Marian prophecy from Our Lady of La Salette, in which the Church would be eclipsed by a counterfeit. The introduction of the inherently poisonous Novus Ordo Missae by Pope Paul VI was not merely just a change in liturgy, it was a sacrilegious break from the traditional Latin Mass, the Mass of all time, as codified in Quo Primum in 1570 by Pope St. Pius V. This new liturgy, propelled by the Freemason Archbishop Bugnini, designed to appease ecumenical sensibilities. And it was not just a scandal, it was a desecration of the sacred liturgy, weakening the church. And as Archbishop Lefebvre said, it is impossible to modify profoundly the lex orandi without modifying the lex credendi. Corresponding with a new mass, we have a new catechism, a new priesthood, new seminaries, a charismatic Pentecostal church, all things opposed to orthodoxy and the perennial teaching of the church. This drop of poison is what allowed the spirit of modernism to infiltrate. The post-conciliar documents were not merely ambiguous, they contained heresy. The language used in Vatican II allowed for misinterpretations that led to the denial of the truths the Church had always taught, especially on ecumenism, religious liberty, and collegiality. These were innovations, and they were by design. They contradicted the unchanging magisterium of the Church, allowing false teachings to spread within the body of Christ. Part 3. The Holy Prelate, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. In the midst of this ecclesiastical upheaval led by modernist Rome, one man rose to resist the modernist tide, Archbishop Lefebvre, who took up the mantle of a holy prelate who would defend the priesthood and preserve the true faith. In 1988, during the consecration of the 4 bishops, Archbishop Lefebvre remarked, "I do not say that prophecy refers to me. I was stupefied when reading these lines." He continues, "Our Lady speaks of a prelate who will absolutely oppose this wave of apostasy and impiety, saving the priesthood by forming good priests." Let us examine the key elements of Archbishop Lefebvre's mission. In 1970, Archbishop Lefebvre canonically established the SSPX to ensure that priests would receive a formation faithful to the traditional teachings of the Church, rooted in Thomistic philosophy, the traditional Latin Mass, and the unchanging magisterium. Archbishop Lefebvre relentlessly criticized the errors and heresies of Vatican II, particularly its departure from the Church's unbroken tradition. His unwavering commitment to truth and orthodoxy set him at odds with the modernist faction in Rome, culminating in his excommunication for the 1988 necessary consecrations of the 4 bishops. This excommunication was not a schism, but a martyrdom of doctrine, a white martyrdom, a sacrifice to preserve the faith when modernist Rome refused to uphold it. In the years following Archbishop Lefebvre's death, the society faced yet another French Revolution within their structures, particularly with Bishop Fellay's 2012 Doctrinal Declaration. This declaration was a grave departure from the uncompromising position Archbishop Lefebvre had established. By entering into negotiations with modernist Rome, which had long abandoned Catholic truth, the society compromised its foundational mission to preserve the traditional faith and priesthood. This declaration was a betrayal of Archbishop Lefebvre's legacy, as it sought to reconcile with a Vatican that was still deeply entrenched in modernist errors. In response to this French Revolution within the society, the true Catholic resistance emerged, firmly rooted in the vision and mission of Archbishop Lefebvre. Like Lefebvre, this resistance holds that no reconciliation with modernist Rome can occur until the errors of Vatican II are formally condemned and modernist Rome converts to tradition. The faithful who remain loyal to this resistance continue to preserve the traditional faith. They refuse to compromise on doctrine, refusing to accept the novelties of modernism or the compromised positions of the now conciliar SSPX. Part 4. 2 exemplars, Gabriel Garcia Moreno and Archbishop Lefebvre. The parallels between Gabriel Garcia Moreno and Archbishop Lefebvre are undeniable. Garcia Moreno consecrated Ecuador to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in 1873 and was assassinated in 1875 by enemies of the Church. His martyrdom fulfilled Our Lady's prophecy of a leader who would die for defending Christ's authority. Archbishop Lefebvre, by consecrating bishops to preserve apostolic succession and defend the traditional priesthood, endured excommunication and vilification, a form of white martyrdom, for his steadfast defense of the Church's eternal teachings. Both men championed the social kingship of Christ, defending his rule over both church and society, and both were persecuted for their faithfulness. These two figures stand as towering examples of courage, integrity, and unwavering resistance to the modernist forces that sought to undermine the Church. Drawing from St. Louis de Montfort's teaching in True Devotion of Mary, we recall that Christ is the head of the mystical body, and Our Lady is the neck through which all graces flow. The greatest recoveries in church history have often followed Marian interventions, such as the victories at Lepanto in 1571 and the miracle of the sun at Fatima in 1917. Our Lady of Good Success calls us to a renewed devotion to her and unwavering fidelity to the traditional sacraments, the authentic Catholic morality, and the reign of Christ the King. The restoration of the Church, as prophesied by Our Lady, depends on our loyalty to these truths and on our steadfast adherence to the unblemished faith that Archbishop Lefebvre embodied. As we confront, resist, and fight this present crisis, let us turn to Our Lady of Good Success for guidance. If the crisis grows more severe, so too does her intercession. In following the example of Archbishop Lefebvre, the Holy Prelate who defended the faith against the modernist innovations of Vatican II, we can remain steadfast in tradition, free from compromise. Let us invoke Our Lady of Quito, knowing that the path to the Father lies only through His Son, and the way to the Son is through His Blessed Mother. Our Lady of Quito, pray for us.
Pecador contempla el día final en que han de dar cuenta los hijos de Adán en un verde valle que es de Josafat, envuelto en pavesas el mundo verás. Acabado el mundo, debes contemplar que el cuerpo y el alma su unión buscarán. Llamará Dios a juicio a todo racional, para que den cuenta del modo de obrar. Dime, pecador, si en gracia no estás, cuando Dios te llame a su tribunal. Tu seno de culpas allí se verá, y aun las más ocultas patentes serán. Tu ángel de la guarda allí te acusará, y María Santísima no te amparará. Allí el juez severo gran cargo te hará, de tu mala vida tú responderás. No habrá allí disculpas ni se admitirán descargos a nadie de su mal obrar. Dime, miserable, ¿de quién te valdrás? Si allí al más justo temblarle verás. Llorad vuestras faltas, gemid y clamad, que si grave es la culpa, el infierno es más. es píldora amarga, dorado disfraz, que se vende azúcar siendo rejalgar, es serpiente astuta, dragón infernal, basilisco que mata con solo mirar.